So this is part two. I want to welcome everybody for making it to this part two of selling with Six Sigma. Today, the major objective is to walk us through the DMAIC process and see how that really works practically, not just theory, and also kind of create an inspiration to go into the full program um, on Project Excite platform. So yeah, that's what we intend to do today. I might not be able to go through all of the content because of time, but we would run through this. So last time we talked about how uh, human sigma affects profit, and it's not just to have the technical capacity, but also the human side is also very important um, going forward, because the human side of Six Sigma is actually very, very key. Unfortunately, we are in a society that is wired to embrace profit before purpose, right? And people will design products and services just because they want to have profit. And my own philosophy is that I must put people first before profit. Whatever I'm designing or whatever services I'm creating should uh, consider people first. And that's the idea of purpose, because all purposes are people dependent, are contingent on people. So people's service precede profit. And if that mentality drives what you do, you can't imagine the level of profit that you will have at the end of the day. Because I've come to understand, and I need to say this, that when I started my consulting firm many years back, um, I was driven to serve people first. So I went around to high schools and started talking to the leaders in the high school, the principals, and the workshop on leadership for free, right? You cannot imagine how Providence paid back, right? I organized tea break on my terms, um, workshop items, all for free for about, I think then about 25 schools. And it was insane how Providence rewarded me, because my first job was with a bank that paid 10 times what I've put into the business, just trying to serve humanity. So the first thing that should come to mind about what we're doing should be to serve people first. That should be the key driver of creating services or products before profit in terms of cash is just one aspect. It's just one area of satisfaction that you get when you put people first before service. And that takes us to the idea of, sorry, let me put this in this mode. The idea of what we call a Six Sigma organization. Well, the normal or traditional organization will usually start with a CEO, or maybe a board of directors at the top here. Then the CEO, and maybe the executive, and then maybe the managers, maybe the supervisors will follow, and those who do the job on the job floor. And then maybe you have your salespeople, and then the customer, right? This is the traditional setting for most organization, and it goes like this, have this kind of pyramid shape here. You have that. But in a Six Sigma organization, this is what you have, right? It's directly opposite. The customers come first. and then the employees, and then the executive team, and then the CEO. Just because the Six Sigma philosophy puts people first before internal operations that churns out or spits out products or services that satisfy people. So this is important to know going forward. And when we talked about, for those joining us, welcome and thank you for joining in this second part. I plan today to finish 15 minutes before time. So please, if I'm going beyond, I won't mind if you can just chat me up that you have 15 minutes more, and wherever we are, I will stop and we can take some questions. All right, so there are several tools that we use in Six Sigma to make processes. It starts with define phase, the measure phase, the analyze phase, and then improve, and then in control. Now, the tools that are listed here is not exhaustive. It's not limited to these two. There are tons of them. And Six Sigma borrows ideas from project management, from total quality management, from uh, people management, from change management, and all of those tools together are what we use for changing the status quo that is yielding the output that we don't desire, right? They say it's insane to keep doing something and getting the same result, and you desire to change it, but you keep doing it and embracing the same result. So Six Sigma people are actually called change agents. They get into a space, they are meticulous about processes and what the outcome of such processes are and how they can improve it to have the desired output. And there are several tools, and these are the tools. So the define phase, we have the project charter. And so on a high level basis, I'll just talk through this and because like I said, for those joining us, if you want to um, understand this more so that you can apply to your business or get certified, uh, then you can shoot Scott an email, and on it's gonna be for free, right? On Project Excite platform, we would run through, we will go in depth into all of this and learn the tools, and that will take a while. So it's not just gonna be 1 hour workshop. It's gonna be something that will span like 2 months or thereabout, so that you can have a full understanding of what this is. But what I'm doing is to whet your appetite, to kind of understand what this whole thing is about. So we have the define phase right there, and those are all the tools. You have the SciPoc, the QFDs, the benchmarking tools, and the Pareto analysis too. Then we dive down into measure phase, where you have SPCs. We use control charts. Now, I also need to state here that some of these tools here can functionally. I mean, so where you have SPC and where you have benchmarking in the define phase does not mean you can use benchmarking in analyze phase, right? So it's not stuck there. It can move depending on the situation that you're solving, depending on the problem that you are addressing. Uh, um, so you can move those things around, but commonly this is where you have some of these tools used here. In improve phase, you have FMEA, which is usually used in the improve phase. Is failure mode and effect analysis. Beautiful tool there. The 7M tools. You have simulation tools. You have the design of experiment, and in the control phase, you can see FMEA again. You have ISO 900X, wonderful tool also there. These things are mind-blowing when you get into it, and you then discover that as you use these tools, you kind of see things differently. You don't think like normal people think. You begin to, you kind of have a thought high to everything that you do, and it kind of gives you some kind of power. All right, so I'm then going to take you into the case study. I'm going to stop sharing this and then go into the case study uh, for today. Now, a little bit of background about this case study. When I was applying for my black belt certification, I teamed up with a consulting firm, and I've kind of done a lot of abstraction here. I've removed a lot of information from this so that to keep the identity of the company involved. It was a bank, and they were kind of trying to launch a new account, a new. Uh, this was like 6 years ago. I can't remember the nitty gritty of this now. But on the platform of that consulting company, I was a black belt. I was invited, and I kind of used this project to get my certification. So you can find this project and the name of the people who work on it on I6 Sigma. There you find my name too, I6 Sigma as the black belt, i6sigma.com. I think you have to pay a fee to be able to download it. All right, so let's dive into this. So this company, through the voice of business, and usually the voice of business is derived from a benchmarking strategy or benchmarking tool. What does that really mean? Well, it's a tool that helps in establishing standards for kind of comparison between similar activities in different organizations, usually in the same industry. So there you establish a target, you see where you are in the big picture scheme of things. Where is my product, where's my services? You'll be able to see that with a benchmarking tool. So the benchmarking tool revealed that this company was paying so much in support costs. The target is paying just $30, but this company was paying $26 in support. Sorry, uh, the target company was paying $30. Sorry, and this company was paying 30. Sorry, support company. I mean, the bank was paying $30 and the target was $26. So a $4 difference. I'm kind of thinking fast that I'm speaking. So this $4 difference, it's a problem when you spread it across all the branches of the bank back then in Africa. So we were called in to see how we can help bring this down to something lower or like close to the industry standard by the voice of business. So we'll be able to find out the whys. Remember yesterday we talked about whys, cause and effect. We talked about the effect that are responding to some courses, to some whys. And we discovered that transfers are one of them, and dig deep into this in a second. Transfers are one of them. Transfers call when people call in that they have issues and they can't get their issues resolved because the person who received the call does not have the requisite knowledge that is able to address that issue, and you have to transfer to a knowledge person or someone who does a research background, and then a callback is instigated, and that callback we discovered that that also was a problem. We'll see that. And then all of these things cost money because for as long as a customer attendant is working, you have to pay that person. And all of those things that goes into responding or solving a problem also is going to draw some costs. So we identify the whys, and one of in the define phase, so the D here means define phase. We are still in the define phase. The define phase, some of the content of the define phase is number one, the project charter, and what constitute in the voice of. We also have the voice of business. You have a SIPOC tool. We'll talk about that in a second. But the project charter itself is an entity, is a powerful document that ensures that you're committed to the project. Once you take it, once you receive that project, because the sponsor of the project, the team involved, and the black belts involved are all going to sign, and that becomes a binding document, becomes a legal document, so that you don't veer off in the course of the project, because now you have timelines, you have a Gantt chart that is a Gantt chart that is involved in the project charter. So a little bit of project management knowledge is also needed here, and not to worry if you don't have that. I'm not a project management person, but because I'm a certified black belt, one of the advantage is that you learn some project management skill from experience and from literature, and then you're able to apply all of those things. So you have a Gantt chart, you have a project charter that is signed. In the project charter, you have to define the statement, the problem statement. So the problem statement here is our competitors are growing their levels of satisfaction with support customers, and they are growing the businesses while reducing support cost per call. And the problem statement says that if we continue in this trend, we'll be running at a loss. There will be business erosion, which means our revenues will be draining. And so something needs to be done about that. Um, Otherwise, we are out of business in the next 18 months. And this is what the bank discovered and said, okay, how do we fix this? Then you also have to develop a business case. That's why we're called change agents. So this business case is also an element of the project charter. The business case is something telling the sponsors the need, the why we need to do this project. And it has to be compelling, it has to be convincing, it has to be powerful, that someone who is reluctant to spend money and time will be able to then commit to it. So in a short sentence, you can write, it has to contain some metrics, some values, like we are not doing better in terms of our business growth, and you talk about the monetary terms of that. Now, let me say this, that Six Sigma is a team thing, right? It's not a private or personal thing. That I'm a black belt does not mean I can run, I'm authorized. In fact, one of the ethics of the game, that you cannot single-handedly run a Six Sigma project. You have to involve subject matter experts. So if you call me into your company to help you improve processes, I have to get people who know the process involved. So we have to do brainstorming sessions. Then with my skill and experience, then advice. So Six Sigma agents are actually facilitators of change. They facilitate the change to ensure that you have some kind of buy-in from the team members, and draw valuable juice information from them that will cause things to change rapidly. So we have the business case. Then we go ahead and state the business goal, and this is, I mean, the goal of the process improvement, right? This is very powerful. We know that every element of a goal must be smart, right? So now, current idea says, your goal should be specific, it should be measurable, and it should be attainable or actionable. Some school of thought says it should be, what is R now? I've done this in a long time. Reliable, so I can't remember. Then it should be time bound, right? It should be time bound. That's smart goals. But we are saying that your goals should be smarter, right? It should not just be smarter. So the E there is that I should create some kind of enthusiasm on the people who will drive the goals. I mean, who would drive the project. And R there means that there should be some kind of reward at the end of the whole thing. So I would add to this statement that everything is here. Increase the call center industry measure customer is specific. You see that that is specific rating from its 75 level percent to target that specific. It's actionable. We can use tools to do that. It's measurable. We can measure that. What is R? Do you remember R? I kind of forget what R is in SMART goals. Um, hmm. If you remember, you can just chip it in. It is then it is time. It should be time bound. It says by the end of the fourth quarter, so we have that there. But it's not smarter. This is not a smarter goal. Then when we were doing this, we were limited in our. Okay, I got a chart here. Let's see. Relevant. Thank you, Angel. So it has to be relevant. Okay, so that is relevant to the organization. Then the E there is enthusiasm. I mean, it has to enthuse people to do it. There has to be some driving force. No matter how powerful it is, if it's not enthusiastic in nature, so people are going to be reluctant. Then there has to be some reward. So I will state there that they should attrition rates will reduce, for example. So that's a kind of reward, and people will have some more benefits, so to speak. So all of these are in the define phase. Then we develop a SIPOC chart. So a SIPOC chart, what does that mean really? Well, for a SIPOC, it's a kind of process map, right, that shows a high-level tool for checking that a process is well aligned with its customers and suppliers. When do we use it? Well, we use it to gain a system thinking of the whole process on a high-level basis, a very high-level basis. Then because some of these things are complicated, so we're not interested in the complicated part for now. When we get into the deeper part of it, we will then begin to drill down and say, okay, this, that. But now we're just dealing with a high level perspective and seeing what is happening from a panoramic view. So what do you achieve by this? Well, we know what the process is doing, and we know the resources that are needed for that. So if you see here, usually it's called SIPOC. In the reverse, it's called copies. So you start with the process. The process starts with a customer calling with a complaint, and then, oh, you sold me this product, and well, I'm having issues. Then the person on the other side, the staff, gather the information, assess the information. If he's able to resolve it, fine. If not, it transfers the call. Then it goes ahead and gather resolution information from the transferred call, deliver the resolution information, log the data, confirm resolution with the customer. And today we know that there is another part here. We did this 6 years ago. So we know there's another part here that's a feedback. So we get feedback from the customer. Now, once that is done, then we go ahead and state the inputs that is involved in each of the processes. We state the input, who are the suppliers of the inputs that we have. Then we go ahead and list all the outputs involved and who are the customers. That is, I've removed some things from here so to keep the identity of the bank involved, because we signed a non-confidentiality document, and it won't be nice if I reveal all the information here. Okay, so now in the define phase, I want to know the voice of customer. What is the customer saying? What do they want? And that is what voice of customer is all about. Well, what does the customer require? They want their problem to be solved quickly as possible. How do we measure that? We measure that with their wait time. That the customer also get the information that they need. How do we do that? Well, we measure transfer and service time during that process, apply information, and so on and so forth. We get the voice of customer. So these are the critical to quality. These are the things that are important to the customer. Also in the define phase, is a high-level process map. Again, high level because each of these boxes is a wrapper for several processes again. So, but we're not interested in that. What we're interested in is from high level, what are these processes doing? So we also need to get that and see, can I handle the call? No, you transfer to ACD, automatic call distribution, would then transfer the calls to someone in India or someone in Lagos, then who then address your issue and so on and so forth. So why is this important? Well, it gives the person who is going to restructure the process some kind of holistic view of what is happening, right? So that I'm not operating in the dark and saying, okay, this is what I need to do, blah, 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 on and on. So then we go into the measure phase. Well, the essence of this phase is to measure, to gather data and measure it so that we know where we are now. We call it as is. Where we want to be is to be. We want to be close to the target that our voice of business, our benchmarking things strategy showed us. So that's where we want to be. But for us to know where we are going, we need to know where we are now, right? If you don't know where you're going and you take an RTD, all bus stops will look attractive, right? So you have to know where you're going from the start and then start your journey. So we remember that our whys are customer satisfaction, and secondary Y is, what I mean by Y is the letter Y. Remember that we talked about transfer function the other time, Y equals F of X. Y is the effect, and X are the causes. What is causing that effect? So this is the Y, and these are the measures, industry standard. How do we measure the customer satisfaction? Well, you can do a one-on-one interview with a customer, which is more powerful than using a bank-wide survey. So we also have, this is what we're trying to reduce. The support cost is what we're trying to reduce per call. And how do we measure that? Well, we measure that by the time it takes to resolve the problem, which involves researching, callbacks, and all those things. Then we then go into how do we measure. The measure here is customer satisfaction. What is our current baseline? Our 90th percentile or 90% of the data we gather show that we are only satisfying 80% of our customers. That's what the 90th percentile is saying, that customer satisfaction is limited. 90% of what we do or the data we've gathered is below the industry standard, which is 85%, because we're just 70 to 80 and the industry standard is 85%. That's a problem. That will cost us more. And secondary support call also shows that 98% of our data shows we are spending $40 or $8 more than the industry standard. That's also a problem, because if we have 1,000 transactions in a week, then we're spending like $8,000 per week. And that's a lot of money, right? Okay. So now there's another tool that is called, what is it called now? It's called a tree diagram. And a tree diagram helps you to gain insight about dependencies in process. So, well, we know that one of the measures is support cost. What goes into this? So if this is an idea or a goal, then how do we, the next thing that follows are means. So if this is the support cost, so these are the means to that support cost. You have to, you do all of this by brainstorming section. There are people who are working in that organization that know this process more than you. You have to involve them in a whiteboard session and using Edward de Bono's six thinking hats. We'll talk about that when we go into uh, what's it called now? The main thing during the workshop. The we all wear a certain kind of hats, and so that we can. Well, let's not. That's not the meat of our discussion now. So we come up with this and discover that call type, transfers, and callbacks are some powerful variables. So we are drilling down to the X's. Those are the X's that are influencing the support costs. How do we know this? Whiteboard session, brainstorming session, and able to come up with this tree diagram. And you can do that if it's an engineering problem. You're producing knots that are 15% out of customer specification. You also need to come up with a fault tree. We call that fault tree, but in this case, it's not a fault tree. This is just to help us have a knowledge of what is going on. We do all that for customer satisfaction, and discover the call volume and staff on duty are some call volume, staff on duty, are really important to ensuring customer satisfaction. How we would see when we get into the analyze phase. Okay. Again, we come back to our SIPOC diagram. You see that now we use SIPOC in the define phase. Now we're using it. How much time do I have? We're using it in the define phase. I would like to stop at 1:45 so we can take some questions. So let's skip to that. Now, we introduce some values here to show that we can control some of these outputs and inputs, and some we can control. On our side, we can control if a call is engaged or not. We can control that. We cannot control the lines that are active or not. So that would depend on customer volumes. Those who call volume, those who are calling would determine which lines are active or not. We can control that. That information is important, and we'll see why. We know today you can use stochastic processes. Don't worry about the grammar. Stochastic just means random. You can do some use random analysis tool to predict which line will be active or which line will not. Okay. Still in the measure phase, we have the cause and effect matrix. Well, how does this work? We've been able to discover all the guys at my left, answer call, gather information, which is the process step from our SIPOC, and all of these, right? What are we going to do, or how is that? This is what we do internally. What we have in the left is what we do internally. How does that relate to the customer requirements, right? That we've discovered, like quickly handling the connection, quickly getting the information, apply the information, and so on and so forth. How does that affect what we do internally to impact on the customer? Okay. Then we assign weights. So, like, take for example, I purposely took this one out. It's 9, but let's use this active phone line. So how does that relate to quickly connecting with a helpful person? Well, it's not really, let's say 5, right? Now, this is subjective, right? And it's again a team thing. Those who do the process will come up and brainstorm and say, okay, give that a weight of 5. At the end of the day, you total everything. So this will help you prioritize what you need to be changing. In this case now we have where's that? I think 222 as the highest. It means in my improvement process, available staff for transfer is a very critical X that we need to look into, and we'll see that. So this phase in the measure phase, or this part of the measure phase, cuts across all kind of Six Sigma process improvement. or Six Sigma project. What this is saying is that how authentic is our measuring tool, right? How authentic is it? Because you can be gathering data using some measuring devices, and that device is off. And you would think you're gathering the right data, and you're not really, and the result could be very misleading. So we have this MSA, which is called measuring system analysis, right? You're analyzing your measuring system to ensure that they are accurate and devoid of variability. So there are several things you use. Accuracy is, does the measure agree with the truth? So you have a truth from the true measurement from literature, from those who have done it before, or from benchmarking, and then you did 5 measurements and discovered that you're way ahead of those those standards. Then you know that there's something wrong with your measure. Um, or you repeatability, does the system always produce the same value? So if you measure it now and come back and measure using the same measuring devices, maybe your wristwatch, for example, if you're measuring wait time or stopwatch, you did that and you measure, and you come back in the next 1 hour and measure the same thing, and you notice a wide gap, then you know something is wrong with your measuring device, right? Or reproducibility, which talks about different people. So if I measure my wait time now and come back in 5 minutes and give my watch time to someone else to do the same task, and the person got way different result, then there's a problem with reproducibility, and you have to check that going forward. And also we talked about stability. Is your mean changing over time? And we'll look at that. Then this is Xbar R chart. You don't have to worry about these two. There are softwares today that you don't even need to understand how it's done, right? Just understand the result and able to interpret it. There are tools that does this for us. Back in the day, you have to do the math, but there are tools that does this for us now. So what is X bar and R chart? It's another tool that is using the measure phase to see how your mean is deviating from the target and to see the level of variability. So it comes as a pair. The first one here is what we call X bar, which is measuring the mean. So the first sample here, you take 5 samples. For it's between 2 to 5 samples. So you take um, um, say 3 samples of wait time. So you measure the wait time when the customer calls, you measure again 3 times, then you find the mean, right? You can see that industry standard says the tolerance should be 5.6 minutes, and upper bound, and lower bound 3.94 minutes. Why the mean should be 4. But for the first sample, it was way beyond the spec limit. So that's a problem there. So you can see that this process is not doing well. There are so many instances where we are out of bound. Then this measures variability, right? This is R here. There's a typo here, so there should be R. So you have 2 instances where we were out of. So the thing here is that you can still be, it can be out of limit and still be within range. We will understand that as time goes on. So let's do some percentile check through the process. We did a percentile check and discovered that 98% of our data is showing that we are still operating $44.73, which is way higher than industry standard. So we then go into the analyze phase, right? 4 minutes more. Analyze phase. And then in the analyze phase here, what we do is we analyze the data that we got from the measure phase, run through all of those data, and discover that, hey, this is where we are. We are still not doing well. Industry standard is 85. We are 75. We're not doing well. We're spending like $7 more than industry standard. So how do we check that? Then we use a multivariable chart. What is multivariable chart? Is another tool. So multivariable chart is tracking several X's per time, how they are varying per time, based on using the industry standard as reference. Remember that industry standard says below 30 or 30, but now we are seeing that this call, so we are using these for call types, right? Since we've discovered from our tree diagram that call type is one measure, so we pick that out, and we're discovering that people who are calling to change their account, people who are calling to state a problem about their account, those times are way beyond. We're spending so much money on those calls, and we're saying why. So the next question is why? Why is that? Um, so Six Sigma is also a problem solving tool. Why is that? That we begin to ask questions, and then we go back to still in the analyze phase. We are analyzing all those things, and we say, okay, what is going on? What this is again that. Sorry, oh, this is not where I want to go. Yeah, so we then go use Ishikawa, right? Ishikawa, or what we call fishbone. The fishbone is a tool that is a cause and effect tool. We want to find out what are the causes to this effect. What are the causes to this wait time? Because this wait time is what is impacting, is a key impactor of support costs, right? So this Ishikawa is divided into 4 groups. We have policies, we have people, we have materials, and we have machines, right? So we've truncated this to show that these are the major problem. Untrained party and no plan for replacing absentees. Again, this is done by a team, not just one person. I just stood there as a facilitator to say, okay, ask questions that will help us get the right answers to fill in this Ishikawa. I know there's a template for that too. So we need to go back and see to this, see that, okay, but wait a second, you guys have a web-based, we have a web-based service. Why are people not using that? That raises another level of question. And so we began to use regression analysis to then we discover from using this V to S is volume of call to staffing ratio. That ratio needs to be small. So, but we discovered that to around Fridays and Mondays, that ratio is very high. And between the week, especially starting from Sunday, then the ratio is exceedingly low. Then we discovered that yes, there is some kind of imbalance in staffing, right? Something is going on. Then we discovered that people are calling in sick on weekend. Probably they want to go to club or something. I don't know. But people are calling in sick and on weekend and towards weekend and calling in healthy again on Sunday. Okay, so this answers the question why, and then did a correlation check and discovered that there's a high correlation between callback time and wait time. Well, that's logical, right? Let's not spend too much time on that. So we begin to next profile. Now we are in the improved state. How do we improve this? Through a brainstorming session, I remember the managers were there then, and we came up with this idea of, okay, let's improve staffing. Let's reduce staffing during the week. Let's just manage our staffing schedule, improve our web services, and train people to handle calls. But we are not still sure of this, so we went to do some cost benefits analysis and come up with this regression analysis. Well, regression analysis is another tool that helps you predict. So we predict that, okay, if we reduce the volume to call, volume to staffing ratio, how would that impact on the wait time? We also find another regression analysis that shows that the model fits well the data that we had for new accounts, and for new accounts and wait time. There's also some kind of correlation there. And we discovered this, that if we reduce that to, we reduce volume to call, volume to staff to 17.5 from 23, we dropped down to about 20%, and here also. Then we went back to a cost benefit analysis and got this whooping benefit. And we did a Pareto analysis, which shows that this about why is the web service not working? Why are people not using it? And discovered that these three, unaware, they're unaware, worried about learning curve, and just prefer phone support, are the critical few that affects the trivial many of all the 100% that we have. So how to do a Pareto analysis, we'll show that in another workshop. So then, without speculating, and make some recommendation, draw up a pilot plan, use 2 sample t-tests, and I'll explain what that means, how to do that to kind of improve all of those. And now that we know the problem, then we set control in place through training and all of that, and we close the project and celebrate. That is the whole essence of Six Sigma. As it relates to ensuring customer satisfaction on call center. All right, I will pause here and ask if you have questions, submissions, comments, and so on and so forth. Does anybody have a question, submission, comments? Please don't keep quiet on me now. Is everybody there though? Because I'm just seeing dark screen all over.
Yeah, I think we're all here. I do have a quick question. It's just
okay.
A follow-up. I think you said earlier in the meeting that there would be another Six Sigma course that would be more in detail. Can you explain how I could get a hold of that or join that?
Okay, sure. You need to send an email to Scott indicating that because it's going to be free, it's going to be on Project Excite platform, and it will run maybe once a week for 3 months. And this is where we'll take it really slow, or 2 months rather. We'll take it really slow and dive deep into all of this part. And we will then apply it, because at the end of the day, we have to come up with a project. So at the end, before we can say this person understand, we will then run a project on your own business or something you're planning to work on. And that's the way it was. So the first thing you need to do is to shoot Scott an email and say, okay, this is what I'm interested. I want to continue with this going forward. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Right? Any other question or submission? Please ask question. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Tolu.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, I don't really have a question. I just wanted to commend you on the presentation. Some of the language you're using is very familiar to me. I'm actually certified in lean in healthcare, and so it's
awesome.
really interesting to see how some of these tools can be used across industries. Also, in my background in statistics, with you using
awesome.
The regression tool. I bet there were some other probably multi-level inquiries I would have. I'm probably I'll follow up with an email as well.
Thank you, Tolu. I really appreciate that feedback, and I would like also to work with you going forward with Project Excite. If you're interested, let us talk about how we can, with your knowledge, how you can impact, because I believe the guys on Project Excite, they have fantastic ideas, and with a little help, these guys can fly. I mean, they can fly with their ideas and do magic with it. So we can work together and see how we help these guys in Project Excite. I don't know how the modalities will go now, but once I get new information, I'll let you know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if Dr. Caston can help with Scott's email address and post it so everyone could see. I can't, or let me see.
Yeah, I can post that in the chat function here.
Oh, great. Awesome. Thank you. Oliver, do you derive any value from this workshop that we just concluded? What would you like to do different? What are your plans going forward?
Absolutely. No, first of all, thank you for sharing your expertise and walking through a case study. It really, the visualization and application of it really helps me connect the theory that you've been teaching. I joined this sort of workshop. I'm still a student at DU as a junior, and sort of I've been hearing Six Sigma and black belt, just words on LinkedIn or out there in the business world. So I really wanted to understand what the lingo meant, but then ultimately what is Six Sigma. And so I really derived the value of understanding the 5 elements that define Six Sigma. And this last summer, I had a chance to work in a fintech business, and they really focused on lean management as well.
Absolutely.
And eliminating waste. And from a student perspective, I was able to apply some of it to my even personal life, sort of understanding
there you go.
What are the repetitive tasks that I'm doing that can be simplified. And so it's been really interesting to see these models come into place and really how they help you further define your thinking. The fishbone exercise there that you showed was another one that was illustrated to the company, which ultimately is, finding the root cause of the problem instead of putting a bandage. So now it's all really, really bringing clarity into the mentality of these organizations moving forward as a student, and sort of what can I apply or start thinking about.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Oliver. Thank you for the feedback. Okay, guys, this is where we'll stop. I'm glad I will send an email of if you have not gotten this case studies. I would ask that it be sent to you guys who are present today and then we'll communicate with you what we plan to do next. Thank you so much for your time, and have a beautiful day. Dr. Caston, thank you.
Yeah,
Right.
excellent job, Jide. That was great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.